Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is L.A. Williams, the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, and I wanted to start this off giving you guys a quick disclaimer because we're actually not at the comfy home studio doing this podcast. This one was out in the field, man. If you know anything about us, we were at the Internet Sales 20 group in Nashville. If you weren't there, I don't know what to tell you because it was crazy, but we were able to get our guest in a room by himself. Relatively quiet, but some of the audio is just a little ducked down, so you gotta pay very close attention to what we're saying. But I hope everybody enjoys the podcast. It's gonna be great. Thanks.
Welcome to the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, the #1 resource for automotive sales professionals, managers, and owners to learn how to make money, accumulate wealth, and to all out ball out in the auto industry. And now your hosts, Sean V. Bradley and L.A. Williams.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is L.A. Williams, and I'm here on the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast. And I got my main man, Sean, around here somewhere. Where you at, Sean?
Man, I'm in an undisclosed location. Don't worry about it. I'm here, but I'm not here.
That's what I'm talking about, man, the millionaire himself. And I'm super excited about the guest we have on the podcast today because I think I really did start off as a fan. The first time I saw him, watched him, LA Dubs blind, by the way. Listen, he was on online talking to Grant Cardone, and he was just so cool and laid back. I said, man, I gotta, research him a little bit more. And come to find out, I got the chance to meet him at his Vegas studios office, right? And man, we spent some time. Sean got a chance to hang out on his podcast, so he's basically returning a favor. And this guy is behind pretty much all the successful people in the world. You want to talk about Damon John, talk about Tony Robbins, talk about Grant Cardone himself. He's provided the software that's allowed these folks to be successful, man. So I met him in Vegas. I heard he's from a little town in Oregon. So let me introduce my main man, Mr. Brad Lee. What's up, Brad?
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being on. So just tell us a little bit about your personal story, where you come from, all that good stuff.
Man, I came from a blue-collar family out of the Northwest. Okay. My dad was a mill worker. My mom was a typesetter. Ultimately 4 brothers and sisters just chilling like everybody else in the world.
Okay. So how did you become, quote unquote, successful? What is your expertise?
Well, now I guess my expertise has developed into a training expert. See, most companies out there think they're training their people, and most of them actually don't even do that. But a lot of times these companies provide training, and I go in and help companies perfect their training and make it effective. Too many companies aren't actually training their people. They just think they are. Imagine going into a doctor's office, getting a shot, and they just squirt it next to your arm. It's not the same thing.
They missed.
Yeah, they missed it.
Absolutely. So tell us something about your expertise that as millionaire car salesmen we should know that we don't know.
Ellie, let me jump in. I want to take it back for a second, though. I want to know, can you define success? Because this is a good question, because success, I think, means something to everybody differently. Mm-hmm. What you think is good money or good quality of life might not be what I do or somebody else's. So I would love to know, what does Brad Lee consider success?
Well, that's a great question. My opinion is, because a lot of people ask me what's the key to success, and I don't think there's a key. I think it's a combination. See, and everybody has their own. What I think successful may not be what you think, and vice versa. But to me, success is when you can have so much. And when I say so much, notice I didn't say money, because it's not just money. I think to me, success is when you can give away freely and abundantly. That's what I think success is. When you can give up so much because you're not worried about what you need, your cup overfloweth, and now you're helping the rest of the cups fill up.
Absolutely. Man, that's huge.
Ellie, what about you? How do you define success for you, Ellie Williams?
For me, it's, the pursuit of a worthy ideal. So because, the person, you could be successful if you intend to be the greatest gas station owner ever, and you're just fighting for that constantly every single day. You're successful to me. No matter what it is that you want to be. If you want to be a great mom and you're focusing on learning how to do that, you're successful to me. So it's the pursuit of the worthy ideal that I believe is success.
Well, I'd like to share with you, for me, success is being able to have freedom. Freedom to choose. Freedom, I don't have to go to work today. Freedom to just say, fuck it, I'm gonna turn around and take my kids out of school, jump on an airplane and go to Texas to South by Southwest video game conference. Freedom to be able to help people that need help. Freedom to just not do what you want in an arrogant way, but without restrictions because you don't have the means to do certain things.
Right.
That to me is success.
Yeah.
But I want to just acknowledge that we all have different versions of success, and we're all right. And so I want to just give the listeners just that feedback that first, before you chase success, how about define success? What does success mean to you? What does it look like? Because if you can't really define point by point what success is, how are you ever going to achieve it?
Yeah.
Agreed?
Perfect.
100%.
Okay.
It's 100%. Too many people are out there chasing it, and they don't even know how to define it.
Word. LA, come on. Throw some fire
No,
in that.
you're absolutely killing it. That's exactly what we need to hear. And so when it comes to being successful, this is the question I was asking is, because you're an expert, training is what you do, right? But some people, there are some things about training that we don't know. And I'm asking you, what are some of those things that we don't know that we should know about training?
Well, I think one of the things is training isn't something you did, it's something you do. The constant pursuit to evolve and get better on a regular basis. A lot of people think, I trained, so therefore I'm done. But it's not something that you finish. And if you're wanting to be successful and you don't know that, you better wake up because it never ends.
100%. I definitely understand where you come from. And I hear you talk a lot about the 4 parts of great training.
Yep.
Tell people about that.
Well, you have to have good content, repetition, practice, and accountability. See, most companies, they'll deliver good content, but they'll leave out repetition, which means it doesn't sink in, doesn't change behavior, and then they think it didn't work. Now, if you ask them, did you train? They're like, yeah, we trained, but they didn't. They simply exposed somebody to some information. In order to train, you have to have good content, repetition, practice, and accountability. Look at any athlete. Look at any military. Look at anyone who's actually trained. I mean, imagine going into the gym, picking up a 5-pound weight and doing 1 curl. It's not going to do anything. That's not training. But then you actually go into a gym and train, and you start to develop muscle. You start to develop skills, and you're pushing the limits. Like some people will go in, they'll take a bench press, 145 pounds. They'll do that for a couple weeks, train. Next thing you know, they're at 165, then 195. Then pretty soon someone's like, how'd you do 315? They didn't see all the work that guy put in beforehand.
Right. So what I hear you saying.
I want to touch on that because, we're playing WWE.
Right.
We get tagged in, so I got this one right here. So, Brad, that's so powerful. When I train dealers, I try to correlate automotive sales professional. If you think of, like you mentioned a couple professional, like a professional athlete. If you look at like some of these people, like the Philadelphia Eagles, shout out to my wife, she's an Eagles fan, is you look at these NFL athletes, what they really got to do to prepare, even in off season, practice, drill, rehearse, they crush it. Think of a gold medalist. I want you to visualize, seriously. Like think of and if you're listening to this podcast, try to close your eyes and think of a multi-gold medalist in the Olympics. Just think about the level of sacrifice, dedication, tenacity, everything from nutrition to hydration to calisthenics to cardio and everything in between. I mean, that's how you become a freaking multi-gold medalist in the Olympics. But yet, in our industry, in the automotive industry, people want to practice with real customers. Can you, with all your experience, can we talk about that? How come our industry, where you can make millions and billions of dollars in car dealerships, it's okay to practice with real people?
Well, it's not okay. It's foolish. But
why?
If you go back to what you just said, like a professional athlete, well, they've got coaches. And they're not just running around the field. They're running specific plays, and they already know what works. And that's the problem with most people. They don't start with good content. So it's just like throwing a salesman a phone book saying make some calls. That salesman's eventually going to quit or get tired or discouraged because it's not working, and then they say cold calls don't work. Well, cold calls do work. Like when I first started, someone threw me a phone book, told me to cold call, and then I'm seeing this guy get results. I ask him what he's doing. He says he's calling plumbers because turns out they need vans. Well, dude, all I was doing was calling the Judys, and it didn't work. And I was about ready to give up when this person said, no, bro, you got to call the right people.
Strategic.
And then when I started calling the right people, I wasn't saying the right thing. So to go back what you were saying, Sean, it's easy to see top athletes and assume it's their training that's doing it, when in reality, it's the coach knowing what to practice on. That's what matters.
That's it.
You know, if I'm running plays randomly and then I get in a game and nobody knows what plays are being ran, guess what? It's not going to work. You're not going to win a championship. But to that point also, you know, assuming they have good content, now they're not doing it enough. They're not providing the repetition necessary to actually learn. Yeah. I mean, why do you think school was 12 years and not 12 days?
Over and over and over again.
Yeah, how many, what if they told you in first grade, hey, listen, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, let's move on.
Right.
Nobody would know their alphabet.
Right.
It's repetition. That's the mother of learning. Practice is the key to improvement.
I like
Man, you're on it. So basically what I hear you saying is you got to have crap training, right? You got to have C, content. You got to have R, repetition. I heard you mention earlier A, accountability, and then P, practice.
Yeah, well, you can call it crap or you can call it shit.
Okay.
You know, shit is specialized high-intensity training, but either way.
I love it.
I like those acronyms.
Phenomenal.
But listen, what you really need is the right mindset, because too many people, believe it or not, I mean, this has nothing to do with selling cars, but it has something to do with living. And I think it's important to get the foundation right before you worry about the rest of it. And too many people, believe it or not, they actually hate themselves. And if you start thinking about that, it starts to get deep, because, like, think about if you had a friend that constantly lied to you, constantly got you in trouble, constantly let you down. How often would you hang out with that person?
Very often.
No, you'd kick them to the curb. You'd say, listen, you're not my friend.
Right.
You don't keep your word. You don't show up. You get me in trouble. You lie to me constantly. You let me down all the time. I'm done. But yet we do that to ourselves all the time. And subconsciously, I think we're listening, but consciously we don't realize it. So we walk around with false bravado when in reality we can't stand ourselves. And then our subconscious mind starts to tell us that we're not worth development. We're not worth learning. We're not worth getting better. We're not worth the money that we can make. And we start to lie to ourselves again. It's like a vicious cycle. So what I would tell anybody in the car business and out of the car business is you have to build a little self-confidence and a little belief in yourself. And it's been years of you lying to yourself. So the number one thing I would tell people, believe it or not, is to forgive yourself. See, now, if a friend of yours that was like that came back to you and first of all apologized, now you might be open to giving them another chance. So you start with apologizing to yourself, as cheesy as that sounds. And then, of course, you don't want to hold a grudge against yourself. So you go ahead and forgive yourself. And then the most important thing you do is do what you say you're going to do no matter what. Because if you hold your commitments and you follow your commitments over time, you actually start to trust yourself. And you actually start to repair that relationship with yourself. And again, I know this sounds cheesy, but it's true.
Don't sound cheesy at all. It sounds perfection.
Yeah, and then when you start repairing that relationship with yourself, you start to realize, man, I deserve more. Then next thing you know, you're like, I can do this. And then this isn't that hard. And your excuses go away and they start to melt away. And now you're ready to actually start training and learning and developing. But until you love yourself and commit to loving yourself and appreciating yourself and respecting yourself, it's going to be twice as difficult. So I'd always recommend people, repair the relationship with themselves and understand one thing, that they deserve it, and then everything kind of absorbs much easier.
Man, that is strong. I have not heard somebody else say those words, even close to that. That makes sense. LA, what are your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree, because I'm thinking about, where I came from. I think about my wife. I think about people in my family. Man, that's a message that they definitely need to hear. So,
well, what's crazy is people don't even realize it.
Right.
Like, they walk around and they're egotistical.
Yeah.
They got false bravado. They're bragging. And let's say they found a little success. See, too many people mistake success for potential. You see, just because you're making $1 million or 20 million doesn't mean you should have made 2 billion. Now, if you know me and you had a crystal ball and you know that I should be at $5 billion already, you guys would look at me and go, dude, what's your problem? And I'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm kicking ass. And you'd be like, dude, you're way behind because you're measuring my potential. Don't confuse like potential with success, because it's two different things. And I think when people realize their potential is farther than they think it is, that's when you start to realize, damn, I could be doing more.
Right, I want to touch on that because I've talked to some profoundly successful automotive professionals like Ali Reda,
Yep.
Who sold 202 cars. And he's literally
In a month?
millionaire in 1 month, December 2018.
Yeah, that
In
shows
10
you.
days.
Now you got the 30-car guy thinking he's all that.
I was that
Chump
person.
change.
I thought I was the king shit as a 33-car a month guy, back in the day. And there's somebody that pulls up 100, 130, 150. My
Well, you
point
know what
here
they're
is-
doing, though?
What's up?
They're leveraging technology.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Their CRM.
Social media, CRM, all
They
of
have to be. You can't sell 202 cars doing it the old way.
No.
You have to leverage technology. That individual was smart enough to realize leverage technology. I always say this, there's only going to be two kinds of companies left in the world. Those who use technology or those who make it. So if you don't make it and you don't use it, you might as well just get out of business now because you're heading that way anyway.
Blockbuster, Toys R Us, etc.
Man.
So but what you just said is extremely powerful. What's the next step? If somebody says, you know what, I believe I could fly, I deserve to fly, where did they start? Because that's almost as overwhelming as the actual journey itself is.
Yeah.
Where do I start? So what's your advice to a automotive sales professional, whether you are a car salesman, car saleswoman, a manager, or even a dealer, that was struggling or wasn't even close to their potential, and they heard this, they heard
Yeah.
your words, and you spoke to them. What do they do first?
Well, the answer's different for each one only because it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If I were a salesperson,
Yes.
the first thing I would do is find the good content, because like I'd be looking for that guy. What's his name? Ali?
Ali, right there.
Yeah, I'd go emulate what he did.
He's been on the podcast.
He's been on the podcast.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, dude, people listen to people and then they don't do what they
yes.
do. Like, listen, success leaves clues. It's not difficult. What did he do? Why can't you do it?
Rewind that. Repeat that. I wish I had a bomb to drop, man. I'm not just boom, boom.
That's
Repeat
my
that.
podcast.
I'm just saying. I'm just hijacking for a minute here.
Yeah, but dude, listen, success leaves clues. If someone's doing 200 cars a month, go do what they're doing. I'll bet you'll do the same thing.
Or close to it.
Yeah, and guess what? If you're not quite as good, don't compare yourself. Prepare yourself.
Right.
Like,
That's-
dude, learn. That guy's probably learned something you haven't, said something you didn't. You just have to model and emulate success. If that guy's your goal, go figure out who he is, ask some questions, keep your mouth shut, listen, implement, practice, rehearse, drill, repeat, and pretty soon people will be asking you what you're doing.
Yeah, and he talks about it. He talks about seed time harvest. So he's on chapter 20, while most folks are on chapter 2, and so that's why you can't compare the two.
Yeah.
So, but if they decided, if they really wanted to get to the point where they could sell 200 cars a month, okay, well then, if you can do what he did without having to do the trial and error
Only-
of what he had to do. So
only
you can
if
do
you
it a lot
believe it.
faster. Yeah.
Only if you believe
That's
it.
so funny. That's him and Frank Grenadi's first thing. They said what stops most 30-car people from going there, they don't think it's possible. I never thought, Brad, when I sold cars, that it was even possible for a salesperson to sell 50,
Yeah.
60 cars. I didn't even think it was possible. So if you don't believe, that you don't have the proper mindset that we're truly capable of profound greatness, how are we going to ever strive towards it? That was deep.
Well, at the end of the day, dude, have you ever heard of the 4-minute mile? Well, before that, there was a 6-minute mile. And before that, there was a 10-minute mile.
Yep.
And nobody thought 4-minute miles were even possible until the first person did it. And then once people realized, oh, it is possible, then everybody started breaking that 4-minute
Right.
mile. It's the same thing, like 202 cars in a month, bullshit. Well, if you don't believe it, that's why I said in the beginning, it doesn't matter who says you can't as long as you're not one of them. You have to believe that it's possible. And let me tell you something, I've seen a lot of stuff. Anything's possible.
Man, I'm
People say, well, you can't fly. Bullshit, that's possible. And the reason why you can't fly is because you think you can't fly.
You'll never outperform your belief level. Good friend of mine always says that. You'll never outperform your belief level. So that's huge.
I will also tell you that trained people outperform untrained people.
Ooh,
That's it. Talk about that.
yes.
Well, it's just the truth. I mean,
You mentioned, go back, like correlate. Like you said, military, like Navy SEALs, for example. You said athletes, and in your presentation at the IS-20G, you talked about like Michael Jordan, and like, so correlate training and success, because there is a correlation.
Well, sure there is. You know, with all the data we have in Lightspeed, because we have millions of users, I get to crunch the data and look at the numbers. And whenever you find somebody that's training the most, you find out that they're the most successful. But the people that actually need the training, they're the ones that refuse to do it, don't want to do it, complain about it.
Make excuses.
And that's why they're the ones that need it. So it's almost like, look, to get more, you have to do more. Okay? People always say, what's the secret? And I say, do more and get better. Here's how it works. It's simple. Let's say last month you talked to 50 customers and you had a 50% closing ratio, so you sold 25. Let's say your average was $2,000 a pop, so let's say you made 50 grand. Well, how do I make more? Do more. It's that simple. Like everyone wants to make it rocket science. It's not rocket science. If you'd have talked to twice as many people, more than likely you'd have sold twice as many cars. And guess what? If that's not the case, well then do the next part, which is get better. Because now you'll sell even more without talking to as many.
See, that's what I was going to say. I'm so busy. You know, you telling me to train, but then you're saying I got to talk to more people. I don't know what to do.
Well, first of all, that's another thing. It's called an excuse.
Right.
See, you ever read that book, He's Just Not That Into You? You ever read it?
No.
Basically, it's about, you know, if somebody really is interested in you, they will find time to call. They will find time to go to dinner. So when anyone tells you they don't have time, it just means that it's not important enough at the end of the day.
That's it.
You know, you'll find time. Too many people, by the way, they're out there trying to figure out what they need to learn. When I found that there's people out there, they don't need to learn anything. They actually need to unlearn. They've already been lied to and they bought into it. Like, for example, you only have 24 hours in a day. You ever heard that?
Heard it before.
That's total bullshit, dude. We have unlimited amounts of time. Like, watch. If I just recruit this young lady right here,
Argita.
and now she's given me 8 hours, she'll do whatever I tell her to do. How many hours do I have now? My 24 and her 8. That's 32.
There you go.
Then I have Sean come in. He's going to give me 8. Well, now I'm at, you see what I'm saying?
absolutely.
Eventually,
Yeah,
you have unlimited time during the day unless you think you don't. But you do. We don't have more. We're not limited to 24 hours. Okay? How about save your money? Let me ask you another question. You ever heard save your money?
Heard it.
Okay, money is literally useless unless you use it. By definition, if you don't use it, it's useless, right? So why does everybody save their money?
Because they scared that they're going to lose it.
That's right. That's called a scarcity mindset. See, if you have an abundance mindset and you realize money is abundant and you can always make more and get more, then you start to break down, how do I make money? You use money to make money. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to pay somebody for that 8 hours. But if I want to save that money, guess what?
You don't get that time.
Exactly. Now all of a sudden I'm wondering, how do I make more? And then I start to say, I don't have time. Well, wait a minute. You want me to do more and you want me to train? I don't have time. Guess what? Maybe you pay someone to do the job while you're training. Or prioritize your time a little bit better. But at the end of the day, I know what you mean, because eventually you will run out of time and then you get better. And then pretty soon you'll be as good as you can be, which is not likely, and you're doing as best you can. Then guess what you do? You scale. You grab someone else and you get them to repeat steps 1 and 2. Do more, get better. Once you're as good as you can get and doing as much as you can do, grab somebody else and have them do the same thing and pay them less than you're getting to do it. It's like if someone will give me $50 an hour, all I got to do is talk you into doing it for 40.
There you go. That's the key. And you talked about that. I heard you say this. You said that you dropped out of school.
Yeah, I dropped out of school at 16. I came home. My dad wanted me to mow the lawn the day before, and I had forgot. So I went home, and he told me to pack my bags and leave. So
But now you got,
I was excited. I packed a bag, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you serious? Like, most people think, oh, that's sad. Dude, I was pumped. 16-year-old kid with a 77 Camaro, told no more parental supervision. So as you can imagine, I made some good choices, and then I dropped out of school. Thought I was going to go be a movie star. But now I have 4 MBAs and 2 PhDs.
wow.
But I didn't earn them. I hired them.
That's what I wanted to hear. That's what I'm talking about. Phenomenal stuff. That is a mindset that people just need to begin to carry. Everything you're talking about is all about making money. Even Ali talked about how he hired a salesperson, and not that all his numbers are going to count for him, but he's going to teach him how to, become the next, himself, obviously, but just using some of Ali's principles. So that's some phenomenal stuff. So let's talk about from a management perspective. How do you make money as a manager? Now you're a manager. You're not necessarily the actual salesperson. How do you turn that into some income for you?
Well, obviously, maximize my pay plan. So most managers that I know of that could easily increase their pay would be to increase the gross profit, which is increase the productivity. So it boils down to time management usually. Managers are allowing people to stand outside. They're not leading people. They're not motivating people. They're not training people. They're just sitting there as guilty as the rest of them. So if I were in a management at a car dealership, the first thing I'd think about is, am I maximizing my time? And mine means my team. So if you're a GSM and you have 15 people on your team, are you maximizing all 15 people properly? Are you training the 15 people to do more and get better? And the answer is going to be probably not. Because if you are, you're probably not even listening to this podcast. You're probably working. You're probably doing instead of finding out how to do it. But listen, I listen to podcasts and I'm doing pretty well. But at the end of the day, man, we all fall victim of the same thing, which is excuses. So I would, if I were in management or I was training a manager how to do more and make more, I would say eliminate excuses from yourself and others and manage your time better.
That's huge. All right, so just talk about this because, you got a lot of knowledge. Where did this stuff come from? Is there a certain book you recommend?
Well, the number one book for millionaire car salesman I would recommend would be How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Yep.
Yeah, listen, the more hands you shake, the more money you make, bottom line. If you don't have enough hands to shake, it doesn't matter how good of a salesman you are. So if I were in the car business still today, I would master the art of introduction. I would get really, really, really good at building relationships. And ultimately, I think the best book I've ever read on that is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
That's huge. All right, so give us a tip on what is, when you think about the best ratio, maybe training versus working, how do you kind of work that out? Because I know people are thinking about that.
Well, I think if you're doing it right, work is training, okay? It's practical hands-on training. But when I'm not working, I'm going to read a book. When I'm walking on the treadmill, I'm learning, I'm listening to podcasts. It's a lifelong endeavor. So I was just making a joke when I said you wouldn't be listening to this if you were killing it. But if you're killing it, you are listening to this. That's the thing. The number one people are the ones that train the most.
Talk about this. What was holding you back from becoming the you of today? Because who you are today, we all look at it and say, wow, that's amazing. But what was holding you back from that?
I think it was just being selfish. I was more worried about chasing success and reaching success. And when I was about 30 years old, I kind of fell in love with helping people win. And I had the knowledge, but I was too busy worried about myself to worry about others. And you'll hear it, it's kind of cliche almost nowadays, but I think Zig Ziglar coined the phrase, the best way to get what you want is to help others get what they want. And that sounds cheesy and it sounds, cliche, but it's true. When I started worrying about helping other people, that's when success started chasing me.
Wow.
Like I could never break $500,000 a year, no matter what I did. And I was sharp, man. I was really good. I was good, okay? Of course, this was before social media, so I didn't get, obviously, a chance to leverage that, or I probably would have did a little better. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't have broke records, only because I was worried about myself instead of others. I think if you're out there in the world today, you should be worried about helping other people. You should be a problem solver. I always tell people, you want to make $1 million, solve 1 million problems.
That's it.
Or solve one really big one. Too many people avoid problems when they should be looking for problems.
Yeah.
Like if you walk up to somebody, I swear to you, try this. You walk up to somebody and say, hey, you want a problem? They're going to say no.
No.
But guess
They
what?
might want to fight you. You want a problem? You don't want no problem. No problems. Like songs about it.
Well, people always say,
You
I don't want no
problems.
problems. Dude, I want problems. I love problems. To me, they're riddles, they're challenges, they're games, they're puzzles. And over the years, I got really good at solving problems. And the way you get good at something is to practice and, repetition. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter what you're trying to learn, whether it's selling cars or building relationships or flying an airplane. You have to practice. And the way to practice solving problems is to solve problems.
There you go.
But yet everyone's trying to run from them.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that money flows to those who solves the world's biggest problems. And so
Amen.
that's huge. We all
That's
gotta
the
know
truth.
that. Absolutely. So what's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, man, I've gotten so much good advice because I'm surrounded by all the subject matter experts because they're using our technology. I read a lot of books. I take a lot of courses. It's hard to say. I think the best advice I ever received would probably be, it boils down to what I said earlier, which is it doesn't matter who says you can as long as you're not one of them. Your mindset is your most important asset. I know people that are so skilled and talented, but they go nowhere because they self-sabotage. They don't believe in themselves. They won't put in the work. And I think deep down, it's at a subconscious level. The reason they don't is because they don't like themselves. And people don't even realize they don't like themselves.
Yeah.
Like you literally don't like yourself. Now, if someone's listening to this podcast, I want you to just think about it. Like, are you getting up every morning early? Are you working out every day? Are you freaking helping other people? Are you doing the things that success tells you to do? And if the answer is no, just ask yourself a simple question. Why? Like, I used to be the guy that would get up and tell myself I'm going to the gym starting Monday, and then I wouldn't go. And then I sat there and rationalized why I wouldn't go.
Yep.
And I made all the excuses in the world. Bottom line, I didn't go. Now, when you start to peel back the onion, you wonder, why didn't you? Don't we know that fitness is good for us? Don't we know that certain foods are bad for us, but yet we eat them? Don't you know going out and drinking your ass off is a bad thing to do, but we still do it? Why is that? Because most people will tell you, I like it, it's fun. Maybe your mind's tricking you to believe that because your mind's saying you're not worth shit. So I think the number one advice and mentoring I got is go look in the mirror because you control everything. And people don't understand that, and it's the truth. I'll give you an example. If I said, screw you, LA, and spit in your face, now you can't control that.
Right.
But how you react, you can control.
Absolutely.
So let's say you, like most anyone would, you throw a punch.
Right.
I hit my head on a chair and I'm dead. Police come. You got manslaughter charges. And then you say, well, it wasn't my fault. He spit in my face. When in reality, you're the one that threw the punch.
Yeah.
So that's to an extreme, but if you start to think about what I just said, you start to realize you control everything. So when you have a bad day, you chose to have a bad day. When you have a bad month in sales, you chose to have a bad month in sales. At the end of the day, until you can look in the mirror and hold yourself accountable, you got a lot to learn. And it's the truth, man. That's why I love working on commission, because when you work on commission, you get paid what you're worth.
That's it.
So if your check's not big enough, folks, go look in the mirror. You got paid what you're worth.
That's it. All day long. All right, man, because I'm telling you, I can sit here and talk to you for hours. So I want to try to wrap this thing up. But tell us what's a personal habit, something that you do that contributes to your success?
Every day I wake up in the morning, I instantly feel I'm grateful for the fact that I'm alive. First of all, I'm getting older. Second of all, it's just unbelievable to be alive, and most people take it for granted. I'll give you an example. what if you could win the lottery every morning? You win $100 million. Would you be excited?
Sure would.
Would you be excited to wake up?
You know it.
Would you be excited throughout the day?
Another 100 million.
Would you ever be in a bad mood?
I don't know.
Yes or no?
I don't think so.
Of course not. You're winning $100 million every time you wake up. Okay, so what would you rather do? Win $100 million or live? Which one?
Live. You want to live.
You'd rather live?
Absolutely.
Okay, so every morning you wake up, you just got the news that you get another day, but yet we want to go through life all pissed off and worried about stupid shit.
On it. Man, I'm excited.
So you
man.
just admitted to yourself that I'd rather live than get $100 million, but yet if I gave you $100 million, you'd be excited all day. You wake up with the news, you get to live, and yet you are not grateful. So I think one of my best habits is
That's the best thing I ever heard.
well, it's just be grateful, man. Like when I show people how to fix their confidence, because a lot of people they're insecure, they don't have confidence, and so the way I teach them to fix it is number one, wake up grateful. So I show them how to do that, and then number two, realize that you can control everything, right? Because you do control everything.
Yeah,
and then number three, always keep your word to yourself. It's not so much as important to keep your word to others, even though I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
More importantly, you need to keep your word to yourself. And too many people are out there lying to themselves, letting themselves down, procrastinating, not developing, not reaching their full potential, not even trying, which is crazy. So, yeah, I would say be grateful.
Okay, cool. So is there a certain internet resource or app or something that you use that helps you succeed?
Yeah, it's called Google. It's called internet. It's called social media. It's called Audible. It's called iTunes. You know, like information.
Yes.
I would seek information. If I could do it all over again, my biggest takeaway would be to seek information faster.
That's why I like the age that we're living in. Because me, being blind, and maybe it's just an excuse, but years ago, I couldn't read a magazine, man. But now I can go right to the internet. Brad was asking me about what I'm flicking on my phone, man. I got information that's just at my fingertips now like never before. I never thought a blind person would be able to use a touchscreen phone. And because of software, man, it can happen. So I'm excited, man. So give us a parting piece of guidance, something you were talking about as far as social media, becoming a social media star. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then just tell people how people can connect with you to get more of this?
Well, you can always find me on Instagram. That's where I like to hang. Facebook's all right, but Instagram's my thing, at The Real Brad Lee, and that's spelled L-E-A. But I believe that, especially nowadays, but more so even in the next few years, everyone needs to build a personal brand on social media. A personal brand is basically, if I go to your page, what am I going to see? Am I going to see that you like tuna sandwiches? Because that may not be as valuable. Now, if you love tuna sandwiches, instead of just taking pictures of your damn tuna sandwich, why don't you tell me what's in it? Why don't you go and teach me how to make myself one in case I love them too? And that's the point, is most people are not posting value. They're just posting crap. And when someone goes to the page, they're like, I can't get any followers. Well, it's easy for you to say, Brad, you have over 100,000 followers. Dude, I started with 0 just like you did. At the end of the day, folks, when you're listening to this, go look at how many people follow you. Again, it's kind of like your paycheck. If nobody follows you, it's because you ain't posting value. And now I'm going to try and teach you how to post value. All you have to do is, again, think to yourself, what is it that you can provide for people that find your page or follow you can consume and find value in? Like I said, people take pictures of what they had for dinner, which is stupid. But if you just put in the comments or the description or the caption, what is that? How did you make it? How can I make it? Where do I find the best one of them? What stores and resources are there for me who would say, oh, the dude had salmon. I like salmon. Well, how do he make that salmon? And where do I get the best salmon? Provide some value. And next thing you know, you start to get more and more followers and you start to build a tribe. That just reminded me of another thing, LA. I want to share with people this too. When I was 6 years old, everybody in my town, not in my town, but my friends, my circle, couldn't stand me. They hated me. And the reason why is because I lied a lot. And I lied a lot because I thought, in my neighborhood, we were kind of the blue collar poor people. We weren't really poor, but we were kind of poor. Right. But at the end of the day, I lied so I'd fit in, because all my friends and neighbors, the neighbors' kids, which were my friends, they all had money. And I figured, I don't want to be the dude that, didn't have anything. So I lied a lot, and it backfired. So here's one bit of advice I would give people, and that is to be authentically you and unapologetically you. Because what happens is when you are you unapologetically, the universe will send people your way that love you, and it will take away people that don't love you. So if you just be you authentically and unapologetically, you'll eventually build a tribe around you that supports you and loves you and helps you succeed, and all the people that shouldn't be around you will automatically filter away. But too many people are trying to be somebody else. They're trying to act like something they're not. So marriages end because of it. You know what I'm saying? When I meet, let's say, my future wife, I'm putting on the best version of me, which isn't necessarily me.
That's Chris Rock. He talk about something. When you meet people for the first 6 months, you don't meet them. You meet their representative.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. And people do that. Chris is exactly right, dude. And I would recommend that you stop doing that, because all you're doing is setting yourself up for future failure. Like if you're a drinker and you meet somebody, have a drink with them. I'm serious. Like, hey, if you're an alcoholic, tell everyone you're an alcoholic, because guess what you'll have around you? A bunch of alcoholics, which is good for an alcoholic. But now, if you want to stop drinking, do you want to hang around a bunch of alcoholics? No. So you tell everybody, I don't drink
anymore.
And guess what your friends are going to do?
Not drink anymore.
No, your real friends will support you.
But support the whole thought process.
Yeah, but guess what your other friends will do? Oh, you ain't fun no more.
Yeah.
What's your problem, LA? We used to have a good time. See, because they don't want to learn, develop, and grow. So if you're just yourself, where it's like, now you state, I don't drink, you don't walk around. I know people walk around with a fake drink in their hand.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
They make it look like a cocktail, and I say, why do you do that? And they say, well, because I don't want to get pressured all night, which is kind of a cool little technique. But at the end of the day, if I were listening to this and I wanted to share something that would really provide serious value, I would say, man, be yourself, love yourself, be authentic, and don't worry about what other people think. Too many salesmen are afraid to introduce themselves because they fear what other people might think of them. And you have to understand, you're not going to make everybody happy. So if you can't make everybody happy, what do? You just keep your mouth shut, don't introduce yourself, or worry about making yourself happy.
There you go. That's the key.
That's right.
So, man, that was some phenomenal stuff, man. I love what you said, man. Be authentically you. And I tell people this all the time, man. You are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And you just been spending time with Mr. Sean V. Bradley, L.A. Williams, and the real Brad Lee. So thanks so much, everybody, for listening. And go out there and be a millionaire car salesman. Thanks.
Thanks for having me, Don.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you like it, you love it, you want more of it, then don't wait for the next money show. Just go to bradleyondemand.com and take your career to the next level.